thank you all so much for being here tonight. I appreciate all of you. Welcome to our third committee meeting. We have an exciting night planned for y'all. It should be really interesting. Lots of information to cover tonight, so we'll go ahead and get started. I hope everybody survived the cold. I'm glad to see y'all. Our icebreaker tonight, what I'm going to ask everyone to do is I want you to think back to your very favorite teacher from school. Very favorite teacher. Give me a second. Think back to your favorite teacher. What were that person's qualities? What were some of the qualities about that teacher that made them your favorite? What were the qualities about that person? Well, I want you to think about it. Now what I want you to do is I want you to look around the room for somebody that you have not talked to in a while, or that maybe you don't know. I want you to lock eyes with them. Look for somebody. Okay, now I want you to stand up and go find that person. And I want you to talk about the qualities of that favorite teacher. What were the qualities of that person? So what were some of those qualities and traits that you talked about that your favorite teacher had? I'll come right over to you in just a second.
Sister Verna, she was very strict, but she was fair, and very high expectations. So.
Strict, fair, but high expectations. You have to use it.
My partner shared that her 5th grade teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, when she taught her students in the classroom, she would then ask her students to teach what they had just learned to their peers. So.
What else? Who else?
My partner shared Ms. Hope at Dalton that she dressed very professionally, set the example.
And so if it's okay, I'll share what Miss Julie Mize shared with me about Mrs. Donna Connell. Said she was old school. Kind of set the rules, set the standard, and stuck by it no matter what. And so she's very proud to be working with her now, and very respectful of her. And I've got to say, for me, I still feel kind of funny saying her first name, Mrs. Sophie Villarreal Jackson, Mrs. Rex Jackson. I can still remember when we met Rex because they were just dating. But she was a lot of fun. All the boys had crushes on her when we were little. And I hear a lot of laughing out there. And she was persistent. She had a talent for being bilingual also, which made a lot of my fellow students much more comfortable, and was just a lot of fun. And both of us, me and Julie, noticed that both of our teachers were first class. We were in their very first class to be taught.
That's awesome. Wow. Anyone else? Oh, yes. Here, go up.
My favorite teacher, right? She was my safe space. So that was very important for me that year. So, yep.
Thank you. Safe space.
All right. My favorite teacher was my father's high school student. He came from, born in Mexico and raised in Brownsville, Texas. He was my college professor for drawing and for painting, oil painting. And when I first started, I thought, this guy doesn't like me. I had taken his daughter actually to MORP when I went to a magnet school out in Mercedes, and I didn't realize it was him. But anyway, when I first started, I didn't think he liked me. But and we kind of had like a lot of disagreements about my process and how I created my art. And by the time I wrote my senior thesis, he, we talked about it. Like, you have a problem with me? What's, we laid it all out. And he just said, well, no, I like you. Like your actions, you've grown as an artist, and I think you're a valuable artist, and I think highly of you. And it just goes to show that a student's actions speak numbers on the ability of their teachers. So he turned out to be one of my really good friends. So
Awesome. So I heard professional, held people accountable, fair, heard a lot of good things, safe space. I wanted to do this activity because tonight we'll present challenges. There will be disagreements. And we're all going to have to listen to each other, respect each other, and we're going to have to, maybe in some spaces, agree to disagree. We're all going to get to have our own opinion at the end of the night. We're going to get to score the options individually, okay, and use our own opinion freely and secretly, basically, independent of our group, okay? But in the discussion, we have to respect each other and behave in such a manner that our very favorite teacher would be extremely proud of us in this context. Okay? And that's what we're all striving for tonight, is behavior that our very favorite teacher would be proud of, because this is a professional setting. And listen, I have been extremely honored to do this work with y'all. I'm so proud of this group. Every single time that we've come together, it has been such great work. And y'all have been so engaged and participatory, and the conversation's been great, and y'all want to learn. And school finance is so tedious and boring, and y'all are so into it, so thank you. And tonight, it's about to get good, okay? Because it's like the nitty-gritty. And there's very little good news here, but it is what it is, and we're going to get through this together, y'all. Yes, sir. Yes.
Discussion. Can we mention any, or would that be at a later date, some items that I haven't seen in tonight's presentation that might be, there's no easy solution. Everybody's going to have a problem with whatever you come up with, but there's some items in here I don't see proposed.
So at the very end, there's an option for you to add to what we have on the list. Right. What we did was we came up with what we feel like are best options for cuts. And I can tell you what we're already doing. There are a lot of things that we're already doing. So that might be why you don't see it on the list. Okay. So then at the very end, there's one page where there are some sticky notes. And so that's going to be your opportunity to say, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And then we're going to take notes. And then what we're going to do is, before our next meeting, we're going to go look into those things. And then we'll bring them back to the following meeting. Does that make sense? Okay, that's what we're going to do. Okay? So let's see. Here we go. So we appreciate the efforts of this group. And I do want to say the intent of this group, honestly, is not to go line item by line item. it's not even the board's job to go line item by line item. They do the budget at the fund and function level. Okay, it's the department chairs and the department leaders to do line by line. Okay, and for us to look at that and make sure that it's good. But the board looks at fund and function. And so this group, what we're asking y'all to do is to provide input on cost reductions at those levels to the board. All right. The trustees may take y'all's recommendations as they are, or they may take them and say, well, we agree mostly, but we may take this one out and move it down. Or we agree mostly, but we may take this one and move it up. Okay, so that's the board's prerogative, and they get to make the final decision. But they wanted community input on their decision, and that's why y'all are here. Understand that district administration continues to analyze the system, and we're leveraging opportunities to make cuts. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in a second. We might be able to make enough cuts that we don't even have to, get to the tiers if we're able to make enough cuts through the systems cleanup that we're working on right now. I don't know, but we need community input whenever it comes to the things that we know we need to possibly cut that impact the community the most. So we want to say thank you for your input and for spending time with us and for your efforts in learning all the things that go into school finance, because it's a lot. Again, ground rules for tonight, one speaker at a time. We're going to ask that you respect the person that's speaking, listen with a desire to contribute and learn, and take a break if you need one. The bathrooms are through that door. In a second here, I'm going to introduce y'all to a special guest that we have tonight. He's here via Google Meet, Dr. Kim Alexander. He is our partner through the Collegiate EduNation. They partner with us through a grant, and we're doing school redesign with them for Morales and Batesville. He works with rural schools all across the country. He is considered an expert in the field of rural schools. He has done all kinds of turnarounds for rural schools. He knows a ton about it, and he was kind enough this week whenever I saw him at conference to say, yeah, I'll jump on, I'll listen, I'll give some feedback for all of your possible cuts. I'll talk to your community. So we're super lucky to have him because he's done this kind of work in communities across the country. He was a very successful superintendent here in the state of Texas, a little further north than us, and has created amazing CTE programs for kids and across the country, and done some outstanding work for rural communities. So we're lucky to have him tonight to give us a little bit of feedback on our thoughts. He's going to listen to our conversation, and then he'll weigh in a little bit just to steer us and guide us as we go. So we're excited to have him. Now I'll pipe him in just a second. So the district budget by function. This is for y'all to look at, and y'all had been kind of asking about this, and so here it is. We put it in two different ways. These are the buckets of money. If you're like me, this is how I like to look at it. If you're linear and sequential, you probably like to look at it like that. So you know, that's me, that's Pam. That's why we get along. It takes both of us to make the world go around. But y'all, we're going to give y'all a little bit of time. She's got some handouts for you. That's at the district level. She's going to hand out campus level budgets, okay? So she's going to talk to you a little bit about what's on these sheets so that you can look at them as a group and kind of talk about what you see. So I'm going to hand Pam the mic because that's what's next.
All right, good afternoon. So I know y'all really would have liked to have these before the meeting, but I can assure you it was a huge lift because there were a I wanted to put it in a good format to where you can see it. But again, like Ms. Colas said, the board does have responsibility at the fund function level. So function is like function 11, function 12, 13. So on these handouts, it's by function, but also I gave it to you by major object group, because we do talk about that a lot of times, like how much of it is payroll. So across the top, down the left, you're going to see it by function. Going across the top, you're going to see it by major object group. So when I say major object group, 6100s, a lot of times you'll hear us talk about 6100s. That's the payroll and benefits. Then 6200s, contracted service, and et cetera. And then on the far right, there's a total for the function. And then I also put a cost per student. So when you look at the enrollment, I use snapshot data, which is the last Friday in October. We always talk about snapshot date when we're talking budgets, because some of our stuff is given to us on the snapshot date numbers. So the very first blue graph is general fund. Then the purple is our Title I funds, our Carl Perkins, and our rural and low income. Those are pretty much steady year over year. We do have some positions that are paid from other grants, like our AEAP grant, et cetera. Those numbers are not in here. Then the kind of aqua color is our special ed funds, federal funds that we get, which are our IDEA B and our deaf education. And then on the very back, the green is all those funds added together. And again, they all have a per pupil cost on the end. All right, so now that everybody's got a copy, is there any questions on what I explained? Do I need to go through it again? Okay. All right. So the dark blue on the top is general fund. On the left, going down, is by function, which again, the board approves at the fund function level. So the general fund is one of the funds the board has responsibility for. And also it gives a description of what the function is. Then the next column is enrollment, and that is at snapshot date. The next column is major object group 6100, which is payroll and benefits. Then 6200, et cetera. On the far right, you've got a total of everything for instruction. So this first one is the high school. So function 11, which is instruction, their budget for the year was $6,400,000, or a cost per student of $5,575. Then the purple is our title funds, Carl Perkins, and rural and low income. Those are pretty steady year over year. The kind of aqua color is our special education funds, federal funds, and some state funds for deaf ed. So that's your IDEA B. Then on the back in the green is a total of all three of those, the general fund, the federal title funds, and the special ed funds. So for the high school, they have a total budgeted expenditures of $9.8 million, or $8,570 per student. Any question on how to read the handouts? Yes, sir.
Function description is $6,400,000 is that reasonable? We have nothing to base that upon. In order for us to make, I think, better informed decisions, there needs to be more detail on maybe within specific departments at each school or some other level. This is great, but it doesn't give us, we have no idea of saying, $8.2 million for that actual campus location without knowing what the detail of that includes. Does that make sense?
So we broke it down by, we did break it down by supplies and materials, capital outlay, staffing, extracurriculars. Like if you look down at resources, curriculum and instruction, like the health services, you can see what all the buckets are. Right. Right. That's all extracurriculars.
So if we were to say, one of our suggestions would be to cut extracurricular by $250,000. We have no idea what that's going to impact because we're just looking at dollar amounts. So I think that would be helpful for the exercise. That's just my opinion. But
Yeah.
that way, where are the true pain points,
Right. So we are already cutting athletics. Like we looked at athletics.
I'm not
and-
picking on athletics.
No, I know,
the one that
but
popped
there
up.
are some specific things. So we scrubbed the departments, and we know where we can cut about 2.6 million out, and I'm going to go through that in a minute here. But because we have a plan, like we have an admin plan for about 2.6 million. And so I'll go through that in a second. What we need to know from the community is after that, we've got a list of about 9 things. We need y'all to order those for us.
I can't from this, and maybe others can, but there's not enough information for us to make that kind of decision because we don't know what the pain points are. I get the other handout where it says, option 1, 2, 3, 4, and $1. I get that. But other than that, I mean, this is great, but it doesn't give me anything that I can say, well, I understand we're going to cut this by so many dollars, but I have no idea what the impact's going to be. It's almost like saying cut everything by 5%, and that's not helpful.
Okay.
Observation.
Okay, thank you. If we can go through the process, because again, even the board doesn't go down to the line item level. So it's not a granular process, it's a high level process that we need help from this committee for. Yes, sir.
I think the point that Hector's trying to make is the district got themselves to this place. Some folks are here, some of the folks that are new to the situation, but you've got to So I was just going to make the point that I think what he was trying to get at is, and this isn't a slight towards anybody, it's just that there are folks who've been here before, during, and after, and those who are new. And it didn't happen overnight. And I think the point he's trying to make is it's kind of we've reached the point where it's kind of missed the board at this point. And if we're to the stage where the community's having to make a decision on cuts and recommendations, that granular level is going to be necessary, or it's kind of pointless to have us to participate if we don't know exactly what we're looking at without that kind of detail. I mean, don't beat the bush about being negative, but I kind of agree with Hector that any of us that operate programs, businesses, you operate in the nuts and bolts. The broad strokes are useful for a presentation, but they're not useful in making informed decisions.
Okay.
May I add something to that?
Sure.
And Hector is right. I'm also an accountant, a CPA. I think, but the gist that I'm getting is that you have basically done the legwork and are going to present a list of items that you want us to prioritize. But it's going to be hard to prioritize if we don't know the effect of the numbers that underlie those categories.
Okay. Well, I don't know that the entire committee, we could probably work with you gentlemen to look at the specific line items if you'd like. I don't know that, maybe we can have a subcommittee for the people who want to look at the more specific numbers. For this committee, again, even the board does not work to the nuts and bolts. It's fund and function level. It's the big buckets of money, and then administration divvies it out. So that's how it works. The board has a lane, administration has a lane, and the help that we need tonight is for y'all to run through the process with us and help us with the information given. We've broken it down by campus so that y'all can see where the money goes and how it's being spent. If you feel like we're spending too much money on extracurriculars, I'd want to know that. If you feel like there's too much money in school leadership, or you feel like there's too much money in instruction or resources, wherever you feel like in those buckets there's too much money, that would be an appropriate piece of feedback.
So you have enrollment at each campus. You have enrollment at each campus, but what is the ratio from student to teacher, and how many teachers are there at each campus?
Right. So those things. Right. So here's why that is sticky and why we did not add that, because some campuses, it'll look like, man, that campus has a lot more kids. But some campuses have, like Dalton, for example. Dalton has a higher ratio of special ed students, and they have little bitty kids. So yeah, there are a lot more teachers on that campus. And so it's also more funded by special ed and more funded at the title level. So it's different than local money. So there are a lot of different funding mechanisms, and it becomes very complicated whenever you start talking about the types of teachers and the types of kids and how we have to fund things and why there are more teachers on that campus as opposed to a different campus.
I'm not questioning the quality,
right.
Questioning the quantity. So
right.
how many at each campus? Just so that I can, I'm not trying to micromanage, I'm trying to see this from 3,000 feet in the air, like, okay, this is the working parts and how it moves. I don't know if that makes any...
We can get you teacher numbers at each campus.
And really that's the scores you were talking about earlier. I mean, the scores are raising. So apparently you need the teachers, but just to, I guess, to kind of put it together to understand better, I guess. Yeah.
We can get you the number of teachers on the campus. Ms. Graber, can you pull up number of teachers on the campus? If y'all, we can call it out and y'all can write it on the page. She can probably pull that up.
Well, I think the point is, just as an example, it's not to pick on one thing. I think it's hard to distinguish if you're looking at where can you cut in labor. You can't look at the payroll doesn't mean anything without knowing where it goes.
That's us.
Right.
We know where we can cut in labor.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I think that's the gist of it, is if we're asked to be a part of the cuts, it's not about, we don't want this person because they make too much, or that person. I'm saying that in general, you would want to know where are the non-student facing employees, the folks who are not necessary to the teaching process, custodians, security, management. You have to know how many of those folks are at each place to know whether or not you have enough or too many. So it's not getting down to every individual employee and every dollar you spend, but some of that is very relevant to what we're talking about.
So Those are not the questions that I would need y'all to answer. Those are administrative decisions, and those are decisions that we are currently making. Like, we're going to use master schedule to drive that, and we use student numbers to drive that, and there are staffing calculations that we use to drive that. As far as like custodial, we use square footage and number of students to drive that. So we're using all those calculations to know numbers, and then we use percentage calculations for administrators at central office level. Like, we have calculations for all of that. And so those are not the kinds of questions that we have.
Right, but the idea is everybody in here is giving up their time and energy and expertise. But the bottom line is everybody's putting their own reputation on the line to be a part of this, so that whatever recommendation is made, the blame for whatever gets cut is shared by all of us, rather than just the individual members of the board. I mean, being on a government body myself, I understand all too well how personal those kind of decisions can be.
Those will not come back on y'all. Those decisions are not y'all's. And I promise you,
those of us in elective office probably would take exception to that, but
those
it most certainly will come back to us.
No, I will be very clear about what are administrative decisions, and remember, y'all are presenting the tier, like all of the work that you're doing, all the work that y'all are doing is online and visible. So the tiered cuts are going to be visible. I'm not asking y'all to pick groups of people that would not have jobs. That's on me. That's on me. So when people are upset because they lose their job, that's me that they're upset with. Y'all don't have, that's not something that I would ask a committee to do. That's not what we're here for.
We're not actually assisting in the budget cutting. We're only...
Y'all are.
Well, really all we're being asked to do is to ratify what items pre-selected that you'll choose to use to take forward to the board for consideration.
So
right.
That we can identify a lot of different things, and then we need to know what else do you see as community members. Like, we're peeling back the onion of like, this is where all the money, this is how the money comes in, this is all the buckets the money is allocated to. We're gonna talk y'all through, like, this is where we see where all the cuts can be made. Where else do you see cuts can be made? Rate these. How do you we're gonna give y'all a scoring card for each one. How do you rate these as community members? So, I mean, there's a process to it. And so that's what we need y'all to do. We need y'all to look at how money comes in, look at what buckets it's being put into to be spent, look at our assessment of where money could be cut, possibilities, see where else y'all think it could be cut from. We do want to know where else you think it can be cut from based on the fund and function level, and then rate all of those options for us.
And that's where it gets difficult, like I was saying. It's hard to find items that don't immediately pop to mind that are outside of your presentation. It's hard to find items that are outside of your presentation that don't immediately pop to mind if you don't have the detail. And there are numerous individuals in here with enormous skill sets as equal to or greater than many of the folks at the district, or even people who were in the district before in the same positions. There's a wealth of experience and knowledge in the room is what I'm getting at, and it would be a shame to not take advantage of some of it.
And so what I would say is, then I would bring y'all in.
And I'm not saying me personally, I'm just saying in the room.
No, I would say come in.
He's going to be the first one in.
No, come in and spend the day looking over what we're doing, because that would be something that I would need you to come in and do and look at to see.
The way I understand it is you've identified some tiers and you're going to make a presentation to us, and we're going to...
I have not identified any tiers. We've identified options for cutting.
Yes.
Y'all are going to identify,
So-
y'all are going to rate them.
Okay, so these options you've identified, and you want us to rate them. So I guess we can wait until you do the presentation, and then we can make our informed decision whether we can rate them with that information or not.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes, and you can look at, we're going to give y'all about 10 minutes. Let me see where I'm at here. So what y'all have in front of y'all is or each fund, expenditures by fund, what's allocated in each fund for each campus and the district, correct, Pam? You have what's also allocated to the district as well? Okay. District is there as well. So you can see where the money's going. Graber, did you pull up the campus number of teachers? They're working on it. Okay, they're working on it. So whenever they get that pulled up, they'll come around to your tables, okay? I will walk around and answer any questions, but you can look at where the money's going. You can see, you can peruse that. We're going to give you all about 10 minutes to talk about that at your tables. And I'll walk around and answer questions. Welcome back. We had a question about what is Community Services Fund? That's the daycare. Community Services is the daycare. So in local, it's the daycare, and in federal, Title I, it's the parent liaisons for community services. Yes. So community services in local, that is the daycare. And Title I federal money, community services, are the parent liaisons. That's what that funds. I have numbers of teachers for y'all to write on your pages. In Batesville, okay, in Batesville, sorry, I don't have them in order of in Batesville. We have 7 general ed teachers in Batesville, 7 general ed, 1 special ed, and 1 deaf ed teacher. At Dalton, flip, yes.
We have 2 custodians
and 2 custodians at Batesville. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Noe. At Dalton. Sure. At Batesville, we have 7 general ed teachers. We have 1 special ed teacher and 1 deaf ed teacher. And 2 custodians. 1 principal. And 1 counselor. And she's a half-time out there nurse. Half-time nurse? Oh, she's full-time, and 1 full-time nurse.
6 or 7 other things.
Yeah, and 6 or 7 other things. And 1 nurse. At Dalton, okay, has everybody flipped to Dalton? Are you ready? There will be a pop quiz. We have 43 general ed teachers at Dalton. 43 general ed teachers. 7 special ed teachers. And how many custodians?
5.
5 custodians at Dalton, a principal, 2 counselors, 3 counselors, 1 program facilitator, 2 nurses. Mind you, some of these people are grant funded. Not all of these people are locally funded. Uvalde Elementary at Flores. I'll let you flip. Flip, flip, flip. Uvalde Elementary at Flores. There are 30 general ed teachers, 9 special ed teachers, 2 interventionists, 1 principal, 1 assistant principal, 1 program facilitator, 1.5 counselors, 2 nurses. She's split between campuses. We did not cut her in half, by the way. And 4 custodians. The next campus is UDLA. UDLA. "28 general ed teachers, 1 special ed teacher, 2 interventionists, 1 principal, 1 assistant principal, a counselor, correct? 1.5 counselors. How many custodians, Noe? 4 custodians.
1 RN.
1 RN. Morales Junior High. We have 42 general ed teachers, 8 special ed teachers, 2 interventionists, 1 principal, 2 assistant principals, 2 counselors. How many nurses, Miss Julie? 2 nurses. Yep. And 1, yeah, that's right. That's that group. 5 custodians. Uvalde High School. We have 70 general ed teachers at Uvalde High School, 70 general ed, 13 special ed teachers, 3 interventionists, 1 homebound teacher, 1 principal, 4 assistant principals, 4 counselors, 2 ADs, 2 nurses, 1 academic dean, 1 academic dean, and 1 CCMR, 1 CTE, no, CCMR. What does she do? What is Ms. Torres do? Advisor. Thank you. Crossroads, DAEP. Close.
We have 7.
7 custodians. Oh, sorry, at the high school we have, he thinks we have 7 custodians at the high school. How many CTE teachers do we have, y'all? Do we know? Oh, we put her on the spot. She's going to count it up. She's going to count the CTE teachers. I'm going to guess there are 13. I don't know. Don't write that down, y'all. I'm like just playing a carnival game in my own mind. Okay, she's going to count them up and let us know. We'll go back to that one. Dog-ear that page. Crossroads and DAEP. We have 10 general ed teachers, 2 daycare teachers, 1 principal, 1 counselor. I did not give y'all the paraprofessional numbers. There are many, many paraprofessionals that give us legs. They are amazing, but I did not we don't have paraprofessional counts in those numbers. So there are lots of paras in the mix, and I can bring that next time. Do we have a nurse, Dr. Lopez, on your campus, or do y'all use the clinic? We do have the clinic, and Julie, Julie, hello. Julie's on this campus. 4 custodians. We have 4 custodians on the Crossroads campus. Ms. Torres, do you have a guess on the CTE teachers? 14. I was not too far off. 14 CTE teachers at the high school. 14 CTE teachers at the high school. I found it. Yes. Do y'all have a microphone?
I can yell. I know how to project. The teacher counts for gen ed teachers or even sped teachers. Is that positions? Does it include our vacancies? Or is it actual people that we have in the district? Because we do have numerous vacancies throughout the district.
Ms. Graber? Those are positions filled at the beginning of the year. Those are how many we should have. Programs facilitator. Do you want to explain that position, Ms. Graber?
Programs facilitator was designed like testing coordinator, the LPAC coordinator, the 504 administrator, so they do all the programs, so principals and counselors. The work with kids when they work on all the paperwork. So instead of making another assistant principal at UEF, we put a programs facilitator so that way the principals are all able to work with the kids, and then this program facilitator is working with the tutors and sitting behind doing the meetings.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm a dog for a long time. I don't know who's on that way. Second, you're a program facilitator.
No, she's not. We're switching over to programs facilitators. They're also a little less expensive because, yeah. Right, we're moving toward a program facilitator model. So we're working on a leadership development pipeline. And so whenever you set up a leadership development pipeline, you have intern teachers that are working on degrees, and then you have a teacher, right? And then you have master teachers, and they might be lead teachers for their grade level or their department. And then you have interventionists, and then you have a program facilitator, right? That's like the first step into the office, and you're starting to learn how all the programs work and how we serve kids best from the office. And that's where you build a lot of relationships with parents, and you're learning all the things, right? And then from a program facilitator, that's whenever you move into an assistant principal role. And then from an assistant principal role into a principal role. So we're in the beginning stages of setting up a leadership development pipeline, but we have to, as people start to leave the district, we're starting to develop the positions, but we can't just create positions. So we're going to work in as people leave, retire. Dalton eventually will have a program facilitator, but we don't have a spot for one right now. So, yes, ma'am. Sure. So an interventionist is a position where, and they're usually not funded locally, they're title funded. It's whenever a student needs additional assistance. They are pushing into classrooms. They might do some pullouts with kids, but they work a lot with our Tier 2 kids, or they go into PLCs and they're closing gaps. They're helping teachers with planning for students who maybe didn't get it the first time, or they're working directly with students who didn't get it the first time, and they're trying to close gaps for kids. Did I do a good job, Ms. Graber?
You did, and at the secondary level, it's also credit recovery. So it's
Right.
credit recovery.
Right. Yes, sir.
Are S4s funded by grants?
Grant. So our S4s they work, remember whenever we had the safety monitors? So that grant ended and we wrote a new grant. And we added to the responsibilities of the safety monitors. So S4s are in addition to making sure that doors are locked and gates are closed, S4s are also responsible to assist assistant principals and principals with students who may have some additional needs behaviorally. So they might have a clipboard and a list of students that maybe just got back from DAEP or maybe have behavior issues in class, and they're walking around the whole time. In addition to checking doors, they're looking in classrooms and they're checking on kids like, hey, you having a good day? Like, I'm watching you. And they're going back and forth, or they're checking with them between classes, high-fiving them, making sure that they're having a good day, setting goals with them in the morning for the day, maybe chatting with them at lunch, but they know those kids and they're a touch point for those kids. We will be pushing in peer mediation training for them with a group of kids, and they'll start running peer mediation for kids. So we're building out that program, but they are completely grant funded. Yes, sir.
The number 13, curriculum and staff development, is that like in services and that program we talked about, training the S4s?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's individualized, but like the S4 that's at the high school would use those funds, but the S4 that's at between UDLA and Mr. Mosavri at Crossroads, he would be using a Crossroads and a UDLA fund or somehow.
Right. Yes. So the principals have professional development funds, and they use those to train and develop. Sometimes there are district staff developments that we say everybody has to use, and so somebody at the district level might hit those funds from each campus to pay for somebody that's coming to each campus. It kind of just depends. Or the principal might identify a specific need on their campus, so they might hit that fund, but we collaborate to make those decisions. It's data driven. We have our district improvement plan and then each campus improvement plan, and we spend money based on those goals and those drivers in those plans. Good? Okay. So, district administration has identified ways that we know we can make cuts from the budget. Ms. Graber led a robust calendar committee process. I would kind of like her to talk just a little bit about that so that y'all are aware. Do you have a mic? Somewhere here, I'm going to hand you mine. Will you talk a little bit about the process you went through?
Yes, I'm not a fan of mics, but our calendar committee, actually Ms. Griffin was the mastermind and really behind this. So Ms. Griffin, she developed, researched 3 different types of calendars. We had a traditional calendar, we had an intercession calendar, and then we did the hybrid calendar. So Ms. Griffin and Dr. Guerrero really dove in, kind of looked at data across the state, raising numbers, academics, the whole 9 yards, and they developed these 3 calendars. We then asked for calendar committee representations of every school, and then they worked really good with the calendar committee. What are some ideas? What are some things that will be successful? What are some hesitations we have? And then we went back and redid some work on it, moved some days based on suggestions, and then we took it to the DEIC. And the DEIC committee, we went through the whole process again, got some of their feedback, got some of their concerns, and then we did a little adjustments to the calendar once again. And then we put it in a thought exchange and gave it out at Tamalata, added it to the our website. Anne-Marie was blessed enough to put it on our website for us, and just what questions you have, what concerns, what are some thought processes with this. So we got some good, some bad, some questions still for us to consider, no matter what calendar it was. And then Ms. Griffin, myself, and then our CNI team sat down and went through every single question on the thought exchange from the community, and we went through and answered. What are the bright yellow days? What does intercession mean? How many minutes? And so we built an FAQ. So we put that FAQ out there, answering all the questions that the thought exchange had brought to us, and or the calendar committee brought to the representative. And then we met back with our calendar committee, went through the FAQ again, got any other additional, which Mr. Cerna threw a wrench in there one more time, and he said, hey, what about this? So we made a little bit more adjustments. We reached out to Southwest Texas College. They had a few adjustments for us regarding spring break, so we went back and did that. And then we got it all together and put that out for a vote, which we really was about a week and a half for voting over one weekend. So we had about 415 or 440 votes, which from historical knowledge, when I asked, they said that was a great number of staff that did vote in regards to this. So we try to get everyone's information and stack it that way.
I'm gonna tell you. So, okay, and overwhelmingly, it was about 80%, am I correct? 80% of staff? About 70%. So about 70% of the staff voted for Calendar C, and that was where most of the days, a lot of Fridays are professional development. So students will have a lot of 4-day weeks. And that saves us money because our lowest attendance day, Friday. We won't run buses on, a lot on Friday. We'll run fewer buses on Friday. We do intend to have activities on Fridays because we know that parents are going to need the littles to have somewhere to go. So we've already worked it out with our ACE partners and the Boys and Girls Club. They're going to have activities, so we're going to have somewhere for kids to go. So if our community has concerns about what am I going to do with my child, tell them don't worry, we're going to have a plan for that. We're going to have a plan for the kids on Fridays. If they need somewhere for their kids to go, there's going to be somewhere safe for their kids to go on Fridays. We're going to, it'll probably be one location for available, and we're going to have a place for kids to go. There'll be a pickup point for kids. They'll be able to bring their child to the bus, and we'll bring them, and we'll feed them. Yes?
Friday football?
Friday football. That's another way that we're going to save money. Our coaches leave. We need subs. We're not going to need subs anymore.
We'll still run buses.
We'll still run, yeah. Yes, we'll still have games. So our kids will not miss instruction. So our kids will not miss instruction because many times the kids are out of class at 1 o'clock to leave for the games. So they're missing instruction. Teachers, coaches are having to leave at 1 o'clock, so they're missing instruction. They're not going to have to do that anymore. Okay? So we don't need subs. Our kids aren't going to miss instruction. We will still go and get them if they need a ride to make sure that they get to school to get on the bus. We are still going to feed them. It's gonna be good. We won't be missing attendance on Fridays because it is our lowest attendance day. Mental health for our teachers will go up. Additionally, we had been running a very expensive model because all of our core teachers have dual conferences during the week for a planning conference and a regular conference. We don't have to do that anymore. They can have PLCs on their Friday professional development day. So they only get one conference, which means we don't need additional staff. So we generally have between 30 and 40 teachers resign every year. We're not going to be in a hiring crunch. When people resign, we'll move people around. We won't need to hire a lot of staff this year because we're not going to need as many teachers in this model as we did whenever we were giving dual conferences. Yes, sir.
Is there some sort of spreadsheet on what we'll save if you use that calendar yet? Or have we got that far?
Has not been a board approved yet.
So we don't know yet. I have to take it to the board in February.
Okay.
But that's one thing that will help us. We're also looking at moving to a 7-period day, 7 periods secondary for junior high and high school, which helps us align with the college better, because right now we struggle to have the right minutes for CTE classes. So having a schedule that better aligns with the college during the day is better for our secondary kids. And so that's a good thing for our kids. It's a good thing for us. Yes, sir.
How do you make up the time lost in instruction by using Fridays? Is it longer days or longer periods?
So the question is, how do we make up days by losing the Friday? So we start a little earlier in the summer. We start, I believe, August 6th. Is that correct? Yeah, our August 6th or 7th. We start a little bit earlier in the summer. And I believe we go... we go until about May 29th.
So you're adding weeks to make up.
Right, yes. And that was 70% of the staff's preference. They would rather do that. It's not all Fridays. It's 18 Fridays. Here, I'm going to let Ms. Graber answer all the questions.
It's okay. Like August up until after Labor Day, so August and half of September, it's 5 days because we want to start processes, routines with our kids, and all of STAR testing, we're back to 5 days. So when we look at minutes from this year and changing it, it's about 5.6 days. But I know Mr. Cerna is already having plans to use some of those Fridays with his staff for credit recovery, for attendance makeup. So we will also have some kids on those days as teachers see fit for some extra intervention. So we can also use those days with parents and bring them up for some extra tutoring time, some attendance makeup time, and some credit recovery time. So theoretically, we'll have more time with kids that we need, but total, if you do minutes from this year in front of a teacher versus minutes in front of an option C calendar, it's about 5.67 days that will be missing instruction. But again, we will put some of those opportunities on that Fridays for some additional interventions.
So that, again, has to be board approved in February. So it's not a done deal. That's the recommendation of staff, and that'll be our, recommendation largely of teachers and staff that voted for it. It'll be our recommendation as far as, senior staff or administrative staff, that it is in the best interest, both mental health-wise for teachers, financially, it's going to be better. Again, it helps us with attendance because, again, Fridays are not great attendance. Fridays, that's when most teachers call in for a sub. So we feel like that's going to save us some money. And then master schedule adjustments, again, going to a longer class period during the day and one fewer, 7 class periods, which again aligns with the college. So we will need fewer staff members. So and we do plan to do that through attrition. So when people resign, people retire, we won't fill those positions. Okay, so I don't want anybody to panic about, am I going to get cut? Please don't leave here and tell people they're going to cut teachers. We are not cutting teachers. When people leave by resigning or retiring, we're just not going to fill the positions, just like we've been doing. That's what we've been doing. Yes, sir, Noe?
Yes, is there a food service on here?
Miss Pam? That's federal. It's a completely different budget. Yeah, food service is a completely different budget. Okay. So, yes, sir.
There's no idea how much money that is.
We estimate that it'll save us about about 2.4 million? We're estimating about 2.4 million.
Trustees need that information.
Yes.
To be able to make a decision, how big of an impact is it?
So, yes.
Somebody, if you're going to vote on something, how much
Yes.
is it saving? 100,000 or 2.5 million? I think
Right. Absolutely. And I will tell them that at the February meeting, that by going with Calendar C and us working the master schedule the way we plan to work it, that we anticipate being able to save about 2.4 million. I will tell them that. And those are rough numbers, but that is what, and we have to look at students.
kind of itemize how you
Yes.
consider it instead of just
No,
number that you say.
right.
Savings.
We costed it out by teachers. Yeah, yeah. So, yes.
Also, hoping to put some money back into the local economy. Kids will be going to movies, go to clubs, go bike riding, and
Kids will be out and about.
outside, yeah.
Hopefully, I hope. Most definitely. So, again, we're going to do this through closing positions through attrition. We're going to hire internal candidates. We're also assessing departments for efficiency opportunities. We did a special ed audit. We've done a bilingual audit. We did a technology audit. We are making sure that our staffing ratios match enrollment. We are doing a policy and practice review with TASB in March. So we're doing all of the reviews that we need to do and cleaning up practices to make sure that we're being efficient with our use of staff and all the things that we should be doing for efficiencies. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, that 2.4 number, does that include like possible energy savings being closed down or?
So
I'm just curious.
we did not
So
include,
that
that could even be an additional. We've talked about possibly moving some different programs around to be able to close some spots. And so we are also looking at those things as well. We're absolutely looking at everything. We are. So that would be additional. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so that's what admin is doing to make cuts. So we're doing all kinds of things that we know need to be done on our side. And again, the board is in charge of the budget on the fund and function level, and admin is in charge of everything else, like personnel and the nuts and bolts. That's all admin. And so we're doing everything we can on our side to make sure that we're being thoughtful about our processes and our systems to make sure that we don't have to come to the board with really difficult decisions like a RIF or program changes. We're trying really hard not to have to do those hard things. So possible reductions. These are the things that we're going to ask y'all to kind of score as a community to inform us about what's most important to y'all. So, technology cost reductions. This is an option, one of the options. I'm going to give y'all at each option about 3 or 4 minutes at your table to kind of talk about it, look over the pros and cons, and then we'll talk about additional pros and cons. And I'll have a staff member take notes about your additional pros and cons. We'll answer questions, and then we're going to have Dr. Alexander weigh in. He's been waiting patiently in the wings. But here's what's great. He's been listening and getting to know our community as he's been listening. I know he has. So he'll be able to weigh in intelligently. So y'all are looking at option 1 and talking about the pros and cons and what you think, and then we'll share out in about 4 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. I want to say that we would not, any changes that we make to technology for cost savings, we would have test groups and focus groups at each level, listen to teachers, listen to kids, before we do anything. We would have a phase-in plan. We would not make any abrupt decisions or changes. So we would make sure that kids have what they need and teachers have what they need. Are there any additional pros or cons that anybody would like to add to the list? Yes, sir. I'll take just a second to introduce Dr. Kim Alexander. He is the rural district expert that I was talking about, and so he's been listening to our discussion, and once we've kind of kicked around some pros and cons, he'll weigh in a little bit on our thoughts, and if he's ever seen that in what we're discussing in any other district and anything else that we might want to consider. Thank you for being here tonight, Dr. Alexander.
So as far as the technology stuff, is it district-wide? Because, one of the cons for the going to the Chromebooks for the early childhood was that the iPads were more user-friendly for the littles. So with the iPads that we currently have, could they not be refurbished and kept in cycle for those younger kids so you're saving that expense?
100%. That would definitely be my recommendation, would be that we would continue forever to use iPads for pre-K through to, like Dalton would probably never not be iPads. The littles, that works best for them. But, we would talk to those teachers and I think they would agree, I don't know, but we would definitely get teacher feedback on that. Definitely.
My question was more so like, can you refurbish them year over year so they can be recycled?
We can do that for a period of time, but once they get to be too many years old, the operating systems aren't supported by the hardware. So we would do it for as long as we could. Cash, anytime I'm wrong, just throw something at me and say it right, okay? Okay, yes.
Okay. I would like to speak to the actual usability of the iPads. They're a lot better for multitasking. As far as the Chromebooks go, you can't really open more than 4 tabs without having a laggy computer. But iPads, you can drag up multiple different apps and, you can drag text from one screen into an email and send it, and it's really efficient. So I like iPads more than Chromebooks for actual usability.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry?
We'll put you in a focus group.
Hello? Okay. Our group discussed a hybrid option, and we thought it would be best, instead of 9 to 12, 7th to 12. Because, 8th grade year, I still had a whole bunch of homework that I was doing, so I think it would be efficient if we kept it from 7th to 12th instead of 9th to 12th.
Thank you. Definitely put him in a focus group. Thank you very much.
The Chromebook option for the classes, it's a class set. It does say that it's 30 devices plus the cabinet. There are some teachers at the high school that have 36 students per class. How would that work in that event?
So we would work with those teachers to make sure that they have what they need. If they needed additional, they can always borrow from a teacher that's on conference. We would work it out with them. There are also, in districts that do that model, there are computers on wheels in the library, to where for some of those classes, they can grab additional for that class at that time, if they know they're going to need them that class period.
All right, and so the other would be, as a teacher, perspective, most of us, I'm not speaking for all of us, but most of us would prefer the class sets, only because as it is now, there's a lot of students who lose them, forget them, not charge them. So we're sitting in a classroom where several students just sit there, fall asleep, or play on their phones because they don't have the iPad, which is their one-to-one, to use it for school. So that's the only reason that I would say, the class set would be a good option, because there would be no more, I forgot it, it's not charged, I can't use it, it's broken. So there's so many excuses as to why they don't use them, as opposed to if it's a class set, then it's there. I understand, when you get to maybe 11th and 12th grade, you have your AP classes and stuff, so then that would change because homework-wise. But 9th and 10th graders, it's rare that they do homework, even if you do assign it, so...
No.
And then, of course, they're supposed to be, I'm not going to say locked, but they're supposed to be fixed to where you can't get in to sites that you're not supposed to, and so on. But they manage to find ways to get around that. And so a lot of times you're walking around the classroom and they're watching movies, or they're doing other than what they're supposed to be using the iPad for. So it's really frustrating. I like the fact that they have something, but when it's not being used the way that it's supposed to, it makes it difficult to want to use that option. But that's, like I said, that's just the teacher perspective. I know that there's others, like I understand what he's saying about the functionality of it and all, but,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. You can be in a focus group too. No, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I like the idea of that, and I've taught pre-K for 25 years, so now I work with first graders. I like the fact that the class set for the pre-K and the littles would not be everybody having one. They need to learn to write. They need to learn to hold a pencil. They need to learn to do so many other things. And if it were 10 in a classroom, or even 5 in a pre-K classroom, that could become a station and not something that they've got a hold of every single minute.
I'm an early childhood person and a special ed person. You're speaking my language.
Well, I'm doing
Yes.
I'm doing first grade now, and my
Yes.
first graders have a hard time holding the pencil the right way. You can't read anything that they're writing. They're going from the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're spending so much time on the iPad.
Right.
It's become their thing.
Yeah. This group had something to say too. Thank you.
Just speaking off iPads, Ms. Gallegos is at the junior high, and she spoke about how, again, I have so many kids who their screen is shattered. They don't bring them, so I'm still having to stop my lesson. You've got, your group of kids who are always going to be on top of it. They're going to have their supplies, but I would bet there's a bigger percentage that don't, or it's broke. I've had little ones tell me, my big brother didn't go to school today, so he kept my iPad. I mean, more times than once. So it's also thinking,
how much time is getting wasted, that the teachers are now having to figure out how to get this student where they need to be because they didn't come prepared, which should be on them and the parent, but here we are, it's not. So now we're losing time. Now people don't have what they need. And as a parent, I hate the iPads. My kid was private school. They didn't have iPads until he came to public school. So he can write and in cursive, but a lot of our kids can't. They need that. And like we said, it's not a babysitter just to figure it out. Sometimes Wi-Fi goes out and I've seen teachers stress, like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Whereas our seasoned teachers are like, oh, we got this. Like, this is what we're gonna do. So, the pros and cons and both sides.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. Very good feedback and input. Dr. Alexander, do you have any thoughts? Have you ever worked with rural schools and how they do technology? Thoughts about technology, iPads, Chromebooks, class sets one-to-one?
Well, can y'all hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
When it comes to technology, I'm a total derelict, so I can't really speak to technology, but I can speak to Uvalde and what you're doing in rural. And I was a long-time superintendent in school finance. Anybody that claims they understand school finance, they're lying to you. It's the most complicated thing, and I never did understand it. But, in Texas right now, we're in a real dilemma, and it's not just Uvalde. There's 1,200 school districts and 700 small and rural districts, and to the person, everybody's struggling right now, either adopting deficit budgets, if they have fund balance, or cutting people to balance a budget. And these are tough times for school finance. And I don't know, the legislature's in session again, and who knows what's going to happen out of that. But specific to the Uvalde situation, I'll just say this: we work with 30 small and rural districts all around Texas, and then now in some other states with large rural populations. And so we work with a lot of leadership teams. And Ms. Colas is not paying me to say this, but you're blessed to have as strong of an administrative leadership team as we work with anywhere. And if there's a way to figure out a way out of this situation that we're in right now in Texas and across the country, I'm confident you're going to find it. Your main committee is your board, and the subcommittees provide input for the board. But Uvalde's in good shape for this. Our mission is the highest student outcomes in the nation. And we feel like the students coming out of Uvalde deserve that, and we're here to support that. And there's going to be some tough decisions that have to be made, to keep that going. But from what I've seen in Uvalde, it's a gold mine there, because you've got all the dots. You've just got to connect it. And in this day and age, in this current school finance system, helping all of your 7th and 8th grade students align with CTE, so you can draw that CTE funding on all your 7th and 8th grade students. The College Career and Military Readiness, that was House Bill 3 in 2019, the CCMR outcomes bonus, that was designed to incentivize schools to graduate students with degrees and certifications. They authorized $1.6 billion per year for that. Currently, Texas is leaving about $1.3 billion on the table because schools just are not designed or redesigned as PTECs. And so that's what we're here to help support you to do that, wherever you're at right now on that. And I haven't looked, but to make sure you're not leaving any of the CCMR outcomes bonus on the table, And that will mean that you are the graduating students that have degrees, they have certifications, they have that research capability to prepare them to become creative problem solvers, to prepare them for careers that don't yet exist. That's the real work to be done. And the more I'm around Uvalde and the leadership team and the community nights like this, I'm convinced that you're going to become a leader not only in Texas, but around the nation for the highest student outcomes in the nation. That's what we're to help support. Tough decisions to get that done. I'm no football coach, and I have a special place in my heart for Uvalde because your state championship team, Lynn Leonard, Mike Peridot, those guys, they're my age, so I know all those guys. And I know some of the great things that Uvalde can and will and has been producing, and we're just appreciate being a small part of supporting that with all the great work going on. But support your leadership because you've got it, and they're going to lead you to the promised land here in terms of student outcomes. My wife,
Thank you.
I can talk for 10 minutes and say about a minute's worth. So anyway.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alexander. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so technology cost reductions. You'll vote on whether we should continue the course, all right? There's going to be, at the very end, you'll use a QR code, and you'll answer 3 questions, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, or when we get to the end, you'll see the 3 questions. But should we continue the course with iPads pre-K through 12, or should we look at cost reductions, different options, a hybrid model? And the way that we would do that would be through focus groups, test groups, and looking at the best way to move forward. A replacement schedule, refurbish and push down, figuring it out together, okay? There we go. All right, let me get through some of these slides to option 2. 2, this is not one that we like very much. Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay.
There we go.
Okay, just so I'm clear, back to option 1. This is not in the budget right now. So this is really not a savings for the current deficit. It's just how do we not add as much to it, or?
So planning going forward. So we're talking about the 25-26 budget year, like we're talking about going forward.
Right.
And not having a deficit going forward.
Okay. Everything equal, what is the best estimate of what that deficit is going forward?
Well, we're trying to we're not going to put forward a deficit budget.
I know, but to get there, you're asking us to do something.
We need to put forward about cut $3 million out of the budget.
$3 million?
Yeah.
Okay. And that includes this?
No, we would need to.
$4 million?
Yeah. No, we would.
Depending on what we vote on, but.
Depending.
But that's important to what we vote on. I'm trying to, grasp in my mind. We're trying not to have a deficit next year. Everything that we have right here is what we're spending this year. The state hasn't indicated that they're going to do anything for us. So we need to cut $3 million from here so that you're in good shape for 25-26. And whatever we decide here is we're going to have to make it up somewhere else.
It would be we have a $2.5 million deficit budget. Mm-hmm. So at $3 million, we would have some wiggle room to do this.
Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And we probably would not work the whole district in. It would be some sort of replacement schedule, like it would be year over year. We would work it year over year.
And the other thing, before we start voting on things, do y'all have an idea of how much, or maybe you've already factored this into that 2.4 or 3 million number, but how much have you been able to whittle away from vacancies, unfilled vacancies that you can probably hold into next year? Some of these efficiencies that you've done within departments and areas, is that included in that number, or how much can we bank on that as, okay, these are the savings that, you can't realize it all this year because you've already spent some of it, but you stopped it at a certain point, so it's going to be a savings for next year. Do y'all have that quantified?
I'd have to put pen to paper on it because there are other things that we've had to do. So
Sure, it needs to be a net. A plus
We're in the
minus.
middle of the budget year, so I'd have to,
No, I mean, it's tight this year.
right.
The best thing is if our kids come to school and we can generate more money.
Well,
That's the other
I
thing.
get that.
See, that's
we
the other
want we
thing.
want attendance, but you're asking us to
Right.
prioritize, and how much do we need to prioritize? I know your savings. I know you're cutting.
Here's our problem, and they sort of described this in the last meeting. It's a moving target because we don't know what our revenue is because of attendance. We're constantly chasing attendance, and our attendance could be 90 and our revenue goes up, and then it's more. Or we have threats and our attendance goes down and it's less. So I could quote you a number and be completely wrong. So I'm not really sure exactly, because we in public school finance, literally we never know. It's always it's so hard.
Budget based on the baseline's got to be whatever you're doing this year, even though it's not ideal. That has to be your starting point. And I guess the idea is, what is the net savings that we're trying to accomplish through what's being proposed? What's the number we need to achieve to meet the worst case scenarios? That's the point. You need to prepare for the worst and be pleasantly surprised if you do better between now and then.
If we could get this group to $1 million, then yeah. But remember, the reason that y'all are tiering it is because I need y'all to, this is a values proposition. I need to know what is the community value. This is a values proposition, and y'all are gonna tier it based on values. Like, you're gonna answer some questions on the survey based on these cuts, and that's really what it is. But budget is a values proposition. How does the community want to spend their money? So we're gonna do everything we can through the calendar, the master schedule. We're gonna do all those things that we can do on our end administratively, and then if we don't have to touch the tiers, which are all the extras, all the things that if we don't have to touch any of those, we won't. But if we do have to go to the tiers, then the board will say, yes, we're gonna operate the way that the community said, or they're gonna say, we wanna start here and pull this one down. However the board adopts it or says, yes, follow that plan, then I'm gonna start at the top and I'm gonna work my way down for cuts, basically. But this is a values proposition. That's what I need from the community. I need to know what's most important to you from these things. But probably about, it's in order. We're gonna cut as much as we can, and then we're gonna start cutting from y'all's list, the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 things until we have a balanced budget. But it also depends on enrollment.
Right, but I think we should assume worse and prepare for that. If you budget based on this last year, that's a pretty good baseline of the worst to be able to go forward and be pleasantly surprised at where it's less, instead of trying to be
Right. And we won't be optimistic, we will, but we won't know until the end of the school year what the worst is. We won't know what that is until the end of the school year because we won't know what attendance is. Absolutely. but we can't, like, we'll probably operate off of about 88%. Yeah, I don't know if you said 88, but okay, 86%, okay.
That's where we ended last
Right.
year.
We don't know what the legislature's going to do. And so, right, we're assuming nothing, and we're asking y'all to go through, look at the proposed cuts, and tell us how you would order them by rating them, basically. So, I'll keep moving here, because I want to get people home at some point. Okay. Here's option 2 is reduce staff medical insurance contribution. This is not one that we like, but it's a big chunk of money that's a possibility. Most school districts, including UCISD, we all contribute to our staff members' medical insurance if you take the insurance. If we were to cut $100 out of everybody that takes the insurance, then, which are about 500 staff members, not everyone takes the insurance. If we reduced the amount that UCISD paid toward every employee that takes the insurance to $225, UCISD could save $600,000 a year. Yes, ma'am.
Would that be something that you could put back later on if you got on a piece?
Absolutely. She asked, is that something that could be put back once the district was in better financial shape? That is absolutely something that could be put back, and it would definitely, obviously this would not be my recommendation, but it's an option. How long do we have the grant for the clinic? I would need to talk to Ms. Mayella for sure this year, and I know she's working on an additional grant for next year. Yes, sir. It would be a reduction in pay, $100. It would be a reduction in compensation by $100 it would be every employee that takes the health insurance. And there are some employees that literally work just for the health insurance because it's extremely expensive. Yes, ma'am.
What percent of your staff takes insurance?
Ms. Pam, it's about 500 employees, so that would be about 70%, 80%. She's looking.
And currently, for the basic plan, I know it just went up like something like $60 this last year. So right now, what is the cost per employee just for the basic plan?
It's about 67% of employees that take the insurance. Do you know the cost of the basic plan? It's about the $325, because if it's just the employee that takes it, or no, it's more. It's more. Okay.
Right. What is the employee paying now for the plan?
She's looking it up. Right.
UCISD's paying $325 a month.
Right.
What is the total premium?
She's pulling it up.
Paying 100%?
No. Oh, no. Yeah. It's a drop in the bucket.
Is that 10%?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. So she's looking it up. It's extremely expensive is what I'm going to tell you. If y'all want to talk about that at your tables for a couple of minutes, Miss Pam is looking up the premiums. She's going to Pardon me?
Are we going to rent these tonight?
That was the plan, but I think we're gonna have to meet, we're gonna have to
Start on this
the next time. Yes, we're gonna have to meet again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. And then that also, y'all can send questions and I can send.
Yeah, we can look at this.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I can give y'all rates.
All right, TRS Active Care Primary, and I'm just going to do employee only. The total premium is $426 with the district's current contribution of $325. The employee pays $101. That's for the primary plan. The Primary Plus total premium is $499. The district pays $325. The employee pays $174. For the high deductible plan, the total premium is $437. The district pays $325, so the premium's $112. But all those have different benefit levels. We can, it's on the website, but anything else?
No, that's what she just, those were the totals she just gave. That's how much the employee is paying.
It's from 101 to 122.
Between,
Depends on which plan.
it depends on which plan.
There's 3 plans.
So the employee for the low plan is paying,
For the primary plan, they're paying $101 per month.
currently, if they have the low plan, it's $101 a month. They would pay $201 a month. For the,
That's if they don't raise the rate.
if they don't raise the rates, which they always raise the rates. For the middle plan, they are currently paying
$174.
$174. So they would pay $274, but it will go up, I promise.
And then the active care high deductible, they're currently paying $112.
They're currently paying $112 for the high deductible, so they would be paying $212. And that's employee only. That's employee only.
Yeah, employee only. Oh,
That's not family, no. The family's like $1,800. Yeah. It's insane. So, our insurance is extremely costly. All of it is. So, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna let y'all kind of talk about this one. We'll run through pros and cons, and then we are going to, we'll close out for tonight, and what we'll do is we are gonna take our we'll come to our next meeting, we'll finish this out, okay? And if you have the information, you can send me questions. You can send questions, and I can give you information, and then we'll run through the rest of them. Then you'll rate them, and then we'll go ahead and take that last meeting. I think it was February 24th, possibly. Can't remember. I had said mark your calendars, and we'll use it if we need it. We are going to need that meeting. Okay, so we'll close out. So. Pros and cons on the district recouping, that $100. What are some of your thoughts on that? Yes, ma'am. Okay. If you'll bear with me, I'll try to get you out of here in the next 10 minutes.
This was one of the top reasons in a former district that we lost teachers. They couldn't afford the insurance. So I just know surrounding cities would benefit from our employees, but us, it would be even harder to find teachers because that was a big push for the district to start researching and looking to find cheaper insurance for us because a lot of our staff, they couldn't afford it.
I would say the maintenance department, when we got our when they told us, pick your plan because it's going up, even the $50, and a lot of these guys have families, and they're depending on this insurance. Right away, the question was, well, are we going to get a raise to cover this $50? And if not, then, it was, I'm the only maintenance person here, but it was pretty, people were upset. It was, push came to shove,
Mr. Victor.
My comment kind of piggybacks on the same thing. What this affects negatively the most are our paraprofessionals, our clerical staff, our maintenance workers, our ground crews. You're making $13,000 a year, that $100 difference. I think we would lose a lot of the paras, even more so than the teachers.
Yeah.
I think if we did come to say that, yes, we would cut it, there's also a lot of community resources that I think we would really need to push out, especially we've got the clinic here on campus, but the clinic has always been here also. When you think about the hospital, they also have plans when you need to make payments. It's not, you have to pay this all up front, or, there are options and there are other things that can be done, and we can, if we had to do this, we could educate them. I went to the clinic this morning with my son because I knew it would be quicker, and I was gonna save about $20 if I went, to his doctor. So educating them, if it did come down to this, how we can help them get what they need still, I think would really need to be talked about too.
We should just try to educate them anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can't sell that as an option. Come work for us, and if you get sick, just go to the clinic. That doesn't work.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're allowed, like me as an employee, I was told, if you get sick and I need to go to the clinic, don't clock out, don't take your work truck, just go over there and take care of yourself.
They're quick.
As quick as possible, and it works.
It's a good idea.
But the thing that the insurance doesn't cover is, some of those hospital stays are lengthy. You got to deal with FMLA if it's a serious, accident. And how many employees really utilize what is the AFLAC? What is that? The supplemental insurance, like ISL insurance. That's why I know. It's like that kind of stuff. Like
What has he not done?
When you get hurt at work, and when you have a death in the family, you need money, that kind of stuff. So that's what we need to educate.
Okay. Great. Well, each insurance is the employee's option. Each type of insurance, is the employee's option to purchase. But if people are struggling just to pay for their medical insurance, they're probably not buying all of the optional insurances. Right. Disability insurance, I'm sure people do not have that. If they can't even afford the medical insurance. Yes, ma'am. You have the mic. Good.
Maybe? There we go. I think this probably should be one of the last things that we look at. People can't afford gas and groceries right now. I would hate to do this. I really would. I realize it's an option. It's a lot of money. But I think, and we've been talking, I think it should be like bottom tier kind of thing of something we want to look at or to do.
And possibly reorganize how we look at them. Because I feel that this is important, but this should also be like a last resource, not the first thing or the second thing after laptops.
Oh, there's no order to these. These are not in any order. They're just options. They're just all listed. There's no order. There's no order. Yeah, they're just shuffled. It was just how we worked on them. Yeah, there was no rhyme or reason. It's all just there. And then y'all, so I completely agree. I don't think it's the best option, and we're gonna work very hard with our administrative capabilities, and there's a reason, Dr. Gonzalez, that I asked you to be on this committee, and I invite you to my office, and I will peel back the layers, and you can look at all the nuts and bolts, and I will take all the advice from you, because I am not an accountant, but I will take all the advice you give me about cutting budgets, because we need all the help that we can get, and I very much appreciate all of you. We have an optimistic closure, but I realize that it is 8:20, and there are some people who have to be at work at 6 a.m. So what I want y'all to do, if you will do me a huge favor, is take this information home, think it through, look at it, send us the questions, send us the additional information that you would like to have, and we will compile it. I believe our next meeting is what? Which? Somebody called it out. February 10th. So we meet again February 10th. The quicker you can get me your questions, the quicker we can compile information to have it for you. And then we can work through the rest of them. Y'all can score them. We will get back together on February 24th. So if you put that tentative, that's a hard meeting. We are meeting on February 24th, and we will look at the tiers, how y'all tier them, and then again, we present to the board March 10th. So if you have questions for me, I'll be happy to entertain them tomorrow or Monday. But I thank you for your participation, and I wish you a wonderful weekend. Have a good evening.